Why did Jesus say, "Abide in me and I in you"? It's a very strange statement, a statement that seems to run against the logic of our day-to-day experience, because if you are in something, then that in which you are cannot be within you. Though, when you think more widely, you will realize that this is also the truth of experience. What did Jesus mean by saying this? I have to confess that it took me a long while, indeed a very long while, to sense the meaning of this very profound and moving insight that Jesus shares with humanity at large. Now, quite simply, there is the problem of knowing. In order to relate to anything, anyone, we have to know that person, know that situation, know that thing. We cannot relate to anything which we do not know. Our knowledge may be imperfect, but we still need to have knowledge of some sort. It's virtually impossible to relate to that which is completely unknown to us. Yet in the spiritual context, the heart of the matter is how we relate to God. But when it comes to relating to God, the problem of knowing becomes far more acute than in the case of anything else. And therefore, Jesus addresses this challenge through this teaching. Therefore, what does this teaching mean? Usually, when we try to know something, we step outside of what we seek to know, look at it from a distance, a convenient and feasible distance. For example, if I want to see the palm of my hand, I cannot hold it too close to my eyes, nor can I hold it at a great distance, at a distance of 2 kilometers from my eyes, and see the palm of my hand, unless I use a powerful telescope or something. But in the case of knowing God, it is impossible to know God in this manner. The only way to know God, which is necessary to relate to God, is by abiding in Him. Now, therefore, let's understand this a little more clearly. Here, a universal problem in knowing, if I may use a technical word for it, that epistemological issue, the epistemological issue is something that the German philosopher Immanuel Kant stated very clearly, and I think he was the first to formulate this problem in cognitive philosophy, in epistemology, namely that we cannot understand anything at all as in itself it really is. But we have to understand, we do understand. Then how do we understand? For example, a cow is standing there, or a dog is standing there, or a passerby, or somebody is coming and standing at my gate, or somebody in my house. Say my own wife, with whom I have lived now 46 years. Can I claim that I know my wife? I'm afraid I can't. I cannot know my wife as she in herself really is. I know my wife as she appears to me, and I know that also within my limitations of understanding. So there are two problems here. One is that the other person is a mystery, and I have my own limitations in understanding. Why is my understanding limited? Because I don't understand myself. All of us know that philosophy starts with the question, or starts with the intention, know yourself. Greek philosophy, this is a seed of Greek philosophy, know thyself. But that's the most difficult thing in the world. Now, if I have such great difficulty and it's next to impossible for me to know myself completely, know myself as I really am, then how can I know somebody else who is other than me? It was a development of psychology, particularly depth psychology, in the second half of the 19th century, from the second half of the 19th century onwards, that made us more and more aware of the many, many complexities, the intricate difficulties immanent in this challenge of understanding oneself. I understand only a small fragment of myself. And particularly, the task of understanding my collective unconscious as formulated by Carl Jung is a hopeless task. Even understanding my personal unconscious as formulated by Sigmund Freud is a daunting task. So therefore, I can't claim that I know myself. And Jesus postulates this problem from the cross. The very first thing that he said, Father, forgive, for they know not what they do. Why is it that they know not what they do? It's because they do not know themselves. And therefore, people universally do many things without meaning it, without understanding why they are doing it, and without even understanding what they are doing. So in that sense, human life is actually immersed in an ocean of ignorance. And that has to be always kept in mind so that we experience something of that intellectual humility which is necessary for us to maintain our human equilibrium. Otherwise, as the English poet Alexander Pope said, a little learning is a dangerous thing. And as Paul writes to Corinthians in the first letter, chapter 8, verse 1, knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. Knowledge puffs up. And Socrates would say knowledge puffs up because true knowledge is knowledge of one's own ignorance. And unfortunately, the kind of knowledge that makes people puff up is the knowledge that excludes the real knowledge of one's own ignorance. The great German author Goethe, Goethe, in India almost always pronounced as Goethe, the German pronunciation is Goethe, said, the more I know, the more aware I become of what remains to be known. And therefore, his progress in knowledge also became his progress in humility. I'm just marking an issue. So, if we don't understand ourselves, how can we presume to know God? Yet, it always surprises me that almost everyone in this world is so cocksure about God. And I have to confess with great embarrassment that I went through such a phase for a long time. I was so sure about God. I knew everything about God. But today, I feel very embarrassed about it. So, Jesus actually posits this problem. Or he takes this problem into account and offers a way out. We cannot know God in the intellectual sense, but we can know God in the experiential sense. And the way to do that is by abiding in Him. And when we abide in Him, Jesus completes that process by abiding in us. So it becomes a kind of internal experience, which is epistemology of a different kind. This is kind of epistemology that philosophy has not properly encountered, addressed, or developed. Now, so when we abide in Jesus and He in us, even though we cannot propound a theory about the mystery of Jesus, we can actually develop a working understanding, an intuitive knowledge, or what is called participatory knowledge of who Jesus is, which enables us to relate to Him. That's the only way to relate to Jesus. That's the only way to relate to anyone else. If I understand somebody, if I think I understand somebody, without taking into account how that person understands me, then my understanding of that person will be not only partial, but also quite problematic. Could be quite erroneous, quite wrong. This is the reason why human interactions bristle with misconceptions, misunderstandings, the comedy, sometimes the tragedy of errors. Now, from this, let me come to a very important existential issue. Most people harbor within themselves a deep-seated pain that they are not understood by anyone. I have experienced that person in an acute manner on many occasions for varying spells of time. And there's a problem of particular acuity in public life. Nobody really understands why you are doing what you are doing. Nobody even bothers to understand your particular vision, which makes you do certain things in a different manner, or do things that are different to what others would have done. Society expects you to conform to the prevailing norms and patterns, and when you deviate from them, you are punished for it. You are pilloried, you are calumniated, you are stigmatized, and if possible, destroyed. And that was why Jesus was crucified. So, we have to accept the fact, and I've come to accept that fact too late in my life, and accepting that fact has created a state of serenity within myself, and that's why I thought I'd share this with all of you I love and care for. So long as you expect that others can understand you, or assume that others have a duty to understand you, and if they have a duty, they are also in a position to understand you, and if they don't, it's because of their cussedness. I think the time has come for us to revisit those assumptions. Today, I leave a wide enough margin for the fact that even the best of the people I associate with, the best of the people I live with, the best of the people I walk and work with, will not be able to understand me. And therefore, human life on planet Earth has to be lived necessarily in a state of loneliness. Loneliness is an essential ingredient of our earthly existence. There is no escape from it. We devise all kinds of measures by which this loneliness or the pain of this loneliness is mitigated. But loneliness remains. For example, you would hear many people say, if you're willing to listen to them at all, that they could never sing the song of their hearts. True, it's very true. They're not exaggerating the case. As I've quoted in one of my earlier videos, the words of Rousseau, man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains. And one aspect of that enslaved state of existence in unfreedom is the lack of the freedom to express yourself as you really are. T.S. Eliot, in one of his poems, talks about the modern man as someone who wakes up in the morning and puts on a mask to meet the masks that he would meet in the course of the day. So human interaction, social, professional interactions, interactions of every kind, even interpersonal relationship, is nothing but the interface between various masks. The true reality of the individuals involved may not be experienced by anyone. Within and behind the masks, everybody is leading a lonely existence. It's a reality. And it is unrealistic, certainly unhelpful, to entertain romantic and exaggerated expectations of this world and to look for somebody who will understand me perfectly, who will lend an ear to the music of my soul, someone with whom I can vibe properly, someone who is so one with me that his or her being melts into mine and we become one and we understand each other perfectly. All this is completely unrealistic. It's not true even in poetry. Such a thing doesn't exist. There was a time I actually dreamt and therefore believed that such a condition existed. Today, having seen it all, I can tell you it doesn't exist. It's one big myth. You will never experience this in this world. I challenge you to realize this. And how does realizing this help us? There certainly is this deep longing, this insatiable thirst within each one of us to be understood, to be known as we really are. And yet we are placed in a world where such knowledge is absolutely impossible. Within the web of human relationships, animals cannot understand us as we really are. Trees and birds can't understand us as we really are. Elements of nature cannot understand us as we really are. If at all there was any scope, any chance, any possibility of being understood as we really are, it was within the web of human relationships. But as we have examined so far, that also is not only difficult but utterly impossible. I am not overstating the case. I am not sharing with you words of cynicism. This is the truth of the matter. So what are we to do about it? Are we to break our hearts over it? Are we to feel so hopeless and desperate? Are we to become cynical and relapse into the very illness of existence? As perhaps some existentialist philosophers would have recommended? No, not at all. There is a silver lining on the cloud, and that's precisely what I want to share with you with all the excitement that I'm capable of. The human longing to be understood right, understood as one really is, can be met and satisfied only in and through our relationship with God. If God is our creator, the creator knows us as we really are. Therefore, we can relate to God. If at all we can relate to anyone or any phenomenon or anything in this world without any apprehension, without any sense of suffocation, without any anxiety as to whether we would be understood or misunderstood, whether we would be manipulated, taken for a ride, etc., etc., whether we would end up degraded and corrupted through that relationship, there's only one possibility left to all human beings. And that is relating to one's maker, one's creator, who understands us, who knows us best, and who knows us better than we ourselves do. If I don't have that fundamental article of faith, if I don't believe this absolutely, without any conditions attached, then I'm the most hopeless man in the world. There is zero chance of my being known or understood by any other agency in this world. I am born and I'll creep my way, my solitary way to my inconspicuous grave, and all of my existence between the cradle and the grave is one long, unending, unmitigated pain and misery. The misery of loneliness, the misery of having had to live one's life as a stranger in the midst of those who are dear and near to us. If at all this ache can be healed, if at all this thirst can be met and satisfied, it's only in this one relationship. That's why Jesus says, abide in me and I in you. Your thirst to be loved, to be known, to be accepted, to be free with someone, can be satisfied, can be met only in this one source. There's no other source. That's why Jesus says, abide in me and I in you. And in this context, let me also quote the words of Jesus as found in the 28th verse of the 11th chapter of Matthew's Gospel. Come to me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. It is this rest. How can you find rest with somebody who does not understand you? Restlessness punctuates human relationships of every kind. Anxiety characterizes every interpersonal relationships, as is so beautifully stated by Albert Camus, Albertcamus, in his book titled Rebel, where he says that every man lives inwardly tormented by the realization that he cannot know and therefore own his wife or his woman completely. Therefore, there is this element of unpredictability which injects this hellish element into love relationships, says Albert Camus. And there is an element of truth in it, as all of us recognize. And if you really go to the root of all this, you'll come to the insights that I've shared with you. It's all because we cannot understand each other. And such relationships as we build are built on the brittle foundations of the partial understanding of each other. And nothing partial can provide stability and therefore confidence. And every relationship is therefore encircled by this envelope of uncertainty and the anxiety and the neurosis that instability breeds. But there's only one source which is unchanging. And that's why the writer to the Hebrews says, Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. The one attribute that in every spiritual tradition God is attributed to is that God does not change. There is no inconsistency in God. He doesn't become his opposite today, tomorrow, 1,000 years from now. Therefore, you can count on that which is stable. Nothing in this world is stable. As Lord Buddha said, the only constant is change. Change is the only constant in this world. We are changing by the minute. The world around us is changing by the minute. Relationships will change. Our physical condition will change. Cultures will change. Our health will change. Our appearance will change. Everything is changing. Life is in a flux. So we need one point of stability. And that point of stability can be only God. Therefore, if we are to find our peace, if we are to find that point of our coherence, existential coherence, the words of Jesus come to us as a guiding light. Abide in me and I in you. And then your life will be fruitful. Fruitfulness is the outcome of attaining health and wholeness in our personality. If we are sick in our person, if our personality is sick, obviously we can't be fruitful. So, the deep inner longing in us, which no other agency in this world can meet and satisfy. As is clearly demonstrated through Jesus' encounter with the Samaritan woman, recorded in the 4th chapter of John's Gospel. Jesus tells her up front, "He who drinks this water will thirst again and again and again." There is no quenching of your thirst. You wanted to be understood and accepted by the 5 men that you accepted as your husband, and now you're living with the 6th one. But there is no hope along this line. Even if you look for the 500th or the 5,000th, your predicament will remain pretty much the same thing. You'll remain a continent of incomprehension for all the men that you'd come across, because they're simply incapable of this. There is no point in finding fault with them. There's no point in complaining about it, because he who drinks this water will thirst again and again and again and again. There is no remedy for the spiritual thirst that you have. There's only one source. And that source is God himself, because God is our creator. And the creator, if anyone can know us, it's only the creator. And to the extent that God knows us, and we are given the freedom, the privilege to abide in God, by abiding in the God who knows us, through that process of abiding in, we can understand ourselves. Otherwise, even the possibility of a person understanding himself or herself is very problematic. And therefore, I who have no understanding of myself cannot complain that somebody else who is other than me does not care to understand me as I would like to be understood. Most people live a total stranger to oneself, and at the same time fill their lives with complaints and grievances that others are not doing them justice, others are not understanding them, others are not treating them as they deserve to be treated. So Jesus is actually addressing a very major existential as well as spiritual issue, and I would commend it to those who see this video to pay heed to the profound spiritual, existential, even philosophical issue that Jesus is positing here without using philosophical language. Abide in me and I in you, then your life will produce much fruit. So, food for thought, and I'm sure that you'll find time to reflect further on this and to understand the insights that I have so inadequately provided through this video and take them to their logical conclusions. And may this turn out to be a life-enriching experience for all of you. Thank you.